You're tuned to Planet Vero Radio. I am Cindy Schwartz, and this is the Patient Partner Show. I've got my co-host, Jeannie Rollo, with me. She's on from Indiana. We're talking about some medical stuff on the Patient Partner Show. Jeannie, we haven't done it in a while. Give the website where people can get a hold of us if they want to ask questions, if they want to, give us a hard time, they want to say that they agree. If they've got any answers for us is another thing, too. We always like to have really good answers, so go ahead with that.
Info@patientrightsinfo.com.
Okay. So today, Jeannie, I'm going to let you lead with this, and I'll chime in. What's our topic today?
Well, MedPage, the October 11th edition of this year, did an article on something that we had talked about really briefly before: hospital hires the formerly incarcerated. Now, to me, this is an issue because it doesn't go into what level of incarceration, what they were in there for. Were they in there for rape? Were they in there for drugs? Were they in there for stealing? It talks about University of Connecticut. And then when I clicked on another link, Yale New Haven Hospital is part of this, that is also hiring formerly incarcerated. And the Yukon said that they hire for like entry-level jobs. And then they gave an example of like parking lot attendants. And then when I went on to Yale New Haven Hospital, I clicked on their current job listings for this. 4 of them were for patient transport.
Okay, and why is that? Yeah. Why is that ringing a bell for you? That's throwing up a red flag for you?
Oh my goodness! Because patient transport, a lot of times patients are under the influence of drugs. They are not able to defend themselves. I've read article after article that during transport is when sexual assault is likely to happen because the patient is not fully conscious. They are drugged. They are totally, out of it. They cannot defend themselves. And to me, that just sends up red flags that you should not have someone that has a prison record transporting patients. I'm sorry. I just don't believe that should be happening.
Okay, so we don't know what you said. You said to begin with on this podcast that we don't know what these people were in prison for, so we have to find out what that is about, because we don't want to, innocent until proven guilty, right? That's the system.
They're already proven guilty. They've been in prison.
Well, not of this, though. I mean, people can be rehabilitated. So, I mean, you have to give the benefit of the doubt, right? And we don't want to say just because they did a crime. I mean, people can be rehabilitated. And people are allowed to, infiltrate or whatever back into society and start living their life again if that's the way that, if they're going to perform in a reasonable social way like you expect people to be in society, not if they're going to go right back into whatever crime that they were doing before they went in, but people do deserve a chance. So we have to look into that. But I find it kind of odd that they would give it right to would bring the people right into patient transport. I can see in a parking lot or, and I don't want to downgrade anyone, but one step at a time, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So let's see how they perform, getting back into whatever society and these kind of things, and then maybe progress people forward. But we'll have to look more into this because it is disturbing.
Yeah, well, it's the Yukon Health says that they will place these people in clerical jobs, building and grounds maintenance and parking lots. But when you click on the Yale part, their job openings says one of the openings is for patient transport, and those are the entry-level jobs. So if they are putting them in for patient transport, yes, I do have a problem because so many people who have been incarcerated end up back in prison because they don't kick whatever put them in prison to start with. And I know I've heard so many people talk about people who work in nursing homes stealing from patients, abusing patients, taking their drugs. So yes, this is very concerning because patients are basically defenseless while they are in the hospital.
Well, right. You are incapacitated, certainly with all the drugs that they use oftentimes. Well, we'll have to find out what actually is patient transport. I mean, is it so if it's a person that's driving a van, could it be that? And then someone is actually escorting the patient? I don't know. Or is this former prisoner, the person is actually escorting the patient somewhere in, down hallways and in and out of elevators, that kind of thing. I don't know what the job entails myself.
Right. And if that is the case, then to me, that is very, very upsetting.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see it as something that should be allowed.
Okay. Well,
because
mm-hmm.
My husband is a victim of assault in a hospital. And so and supposedly the people who did it were good people, but yet they did it. So I have issues. I have these things raise red flags for me when I see something like that.
Well, there's no harm in us questioning it because you'd want to be in front of it rather than behind where you say, oh, we should have done something kind of thing. So I was watching this one program in one of those news programs or whatever, just to solidify what you're saying, Jeannie. And it was about a rape murder case that happened, I want to say in South Carolina, but yeah, I want to say South Carolina. And what wound up being the person that did it was somebody that was incarcerated for those similar crimes, that state where they were incarcerated had decided, well, that person he was in for 40 years. And the state said, well, 20 years is enough, whatever, leniency program they had come up with it at that state. And they let him out after 20 years. And then he went to another state and this is what happened. And so, a 20-year-old girl was raped and murdered and whatever. So I get what you're saying. I mean, we need to follow up on these things. And again, too, I mean, you're lying on a gurney, you're completely defenseless. I mean, even if you're 18, 20 years old, you can't defend yourself because you're incapacitated. Imagine somebody that's 78, 80, 90 years old. I mean, people need to know what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that I am against formerly incarcerated people having jobs, but I do think that there is an issue of trust.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was myself or my family, I would want to know if someone who was taking care of my unconscious family member
mm-hmm.
had legal problems in the past.
Well, they have to be vetted. I mean, they certainly have to be vetted. I'm talking about the employee that's in this situation that was formerly an inmate somewhere, and depending on what crime, again, we don't know exactly what criminals or former criminals they're hiring for these jobs. So we don't want to make a blanket statement about that. These are our opinions. But it's valid. I mean, it's valid because we both know. I know in my instance, when I went to the administration at the hospital where the things happened to me, the assaults and whatever, the people that were working on me they had a license, they had a name, a phone number, and an address, and that's how they got hired into the operating room. They weren't vetted for anything. They hadn't been in a class. They didn't have a license. They didn't have a certification. They didn't come out of, a university, let alone a community college. So it's true that these are, and they weren't necessarily criminals that I ever found out about. The hospital certainly wouldn't tell me. They said, that's HR. You have no legal right to any of that information. And I'm like, well, I'm being sexually assaulted, so I think that I do. But I don't know who these people are. None of us really do. Yeah. We're trusting the hospital that they've vetted them. And some of these administrations, I mean, wow. So I'm with you, Jeannie. It's our opinions about a lot of this stuff, but we got to do some more research on it and find it if we can get to the true answer of what's really happening.
Well, it's scary to me that this article doesn't mention what the majority of them were incarcerated for. They should spell it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it should be public knowledge. Okay. On that note, I'm going to say, please stay tuned to Planet Vero Radio.